Watching the Orioles, watching the Orioles, watching the Orioles, watching the Orioles.
Welcome back to Bird's Eye View. When it comes to the Orioles, this weekly podcast is your official source for a lack of insight and pervasive opinion. Today is June 5th, 2025, and this is episode 409. My name is Scott Magnus.
And I'm Jake English.
And in this week's show, we'll make note that Mike Elias has saved his pennies, and he's saved his dimes as well.
We'll also try to point out that it's warning track power where this team really shines. Giddy up, giddy up. It's episode 409.
And we'll do all that right after we lubricate the show. That's right. It's time for the drink of the week. Jake, what are you imbibing on this evening?
Scott, I made myself a cocktail and brought it to your house. It contains tonic, it contains lime, and it contains, these are troubling times in the kingdom, the last drops of gin in the house.
Before, gin skyrockets in terms of price from...
These are the last pre-tariff drops of gin.
All right. That sounds absolutely horrible on that basis. I'm also doing liquor this evening. I am doing some 12-year-old whiskey scotch concoction is the best way to describe it. When you're on a winning streak, scotch has to come out.
I think it's hilarious that we are hitting it harder in the good times. Maybe we were protecting ourselves. We're
just not used to it on that basis.
If you're curious as to what we're drinking on a pitch-by-pitch basis at this point, find us on Untapped. I'm at Jake E4025.
I'm at MAGN8606. Shout out as well to Market Street Brewery up in Havre de Grace. I've been going up there for the past few nights because I've been in Havre de Grace, in essence, getting ready for a lovely weekend of dance recitals for my daughter. But if you're in the Havre de Grace area, there are two local breweries in town now, Battery Island Brewing, Market Street Brewery, very much a nano brewery standpoint. You're looking at tanks that are probably no greater than 100 gallons. I wouldn't say great beer, but good local beer. So if you're in the Havre de Grace area looking for a beer, check them out on that basis. With that, since I've imbibed too much, let's go into the medical wing and see who else is ailing at this moment.
I'm gonna check your ears, check your eyes, find out how much you've grown. Time for your checkup. Just gonna listen to your heartbeat, fix you up, ready to go. Time for your checkup. It's okay if you giggle. This will only tickle a little. Time for your checkup. Time for your checkup.
Is this good news that we're seeing here on the medical wing? Goodish?
I can't tell if it's good news or if it's simply not horrific news moment after moment.
Sounds like the 2025 season.
It does indeed. Hey, we're getting close to getting guys back.
Huzzah! We'll get Colton Cowser back this week.
We did get Colton Cowser back this week, and that is a good thing.
And Ramon Laureano was pulled this evening from his rehab start in Norfolk as part of the assignment that he was on. So it looks like Ramon Laureano is either coming back now or in the next few days.
I think we've really missed an opportunity. I think the Orioles media, who again have been hitting it out of the park this season and last season, I really feel like they've come into their own, but they missed an opportunity to have that emotional moment where the AAA coach pulls the player aside and says, hey,
you're going back up.
You're going to Baltimore tomorrow. You're going to need to take those bags to Seattle or Sacramento or wherever it is.
But we've seen Jordan Westberg, in essence, come up and, continue his rehab assignments. He hit a home run today. So he looks like he's darn close, if not ready to come up. Like I said, it's a weird situation with them being on the West Coast. Like in other instances, I'd be like, they'll send them over. But like, do you send somebody over to the West Coast, just have them come right back? I don't know. It's an interesting scenario, but and then you've got Gary Sanchez, who also hit a home run today in a rehab start. So you got a lot of folks, in essence, in AAA Norfolk, in essence, going through their rehab assignments, knocking on the door, ready to come back to the Baltimore Orioles.
when the vibes are good, maybe you make the players hang out in the clubhouse, in the dugout.
Maybe. Cedric Mullins is continuing to do running activities. He's going to be resuming baseball activities soon. I think the one blemish on the medical wing has to be Ryan Mountcastle, who again injured his hamstring sprinting into home on that double steal. And apparently MRI came back and, we're going to see, and Mancini said, might be a while. So that went from being like, they're just being cautious to now like, okay, is this going to be a similar matter like we saw with Westberg, where he's going to be out for 6 weeks? Which is a really awkward timing, if we're being candid, because like you look at Mountcastle, and it's not like he's been doing great so far this season. And that's not to say that there's someone in the wings waiting to take over his position at this moment, but it is in a very awkward position of like, if you don't have him available at the trade deadline, like, okay, what does that mean going forward? So, just slash line right now, through this point of it, Ryan Mountcastle's injury, he has 2 home runs on the season. He's got a 246 average, a 280 on base percentage, good for a 78 weighted runs created plus. Typically he's at 108, 110. So yeah, he's having the worst season of his career.
Are you telling me that teams won't burn down their minor league system to acquire that hurt player?
Probably not. And again, he's going into his last year of arbitration next year. So awkward times. I think, coming back to your point though, I think, you let him heal up, get familiar with the bat once again, and then you kind of hope that he gets back up here in, we'll call it August, maybe, and maybe goes on a tear in August and September. Maybe.
What could the Orioles possibly do at first base?
Yeah.
Do they have a player that's ready to plug in that's playing well?
Well, there's a lot. We'll get into this maybe not in this episode. Maybe we'll get this in a future bird's eye view standpoint. But it's an interesting question, and certainly something that I didn't think was going to have to be answered as quickly as it was. But yeah, something to watch out for in the future.
Are hamstrings safe in this ball club? I feel like the hamstring is the new oblique.
It potentially could be on that basis. And then our pitchers who, are supposed to anchor our rotation, Kyle Brausch and Grayson Rodriguez, still really no news whatsoever in terms of that happening. You would think that if they're going to return sometime in August, that, a timeline in terms of when they're going to return to Norfolk would, not even Norfolk, honestly, like when they're going to return to Aberdeen just to start throwing games, and that has not happened.
Their rehab assignment is going to start with the tumbleweeds.
Yeah. Tyler Wells still like bullpenning. So just weird aspects of, managing pitchers at this moment.
Tyler O'Neill is set to begin his injury assignment this weekend, the 6th through the 8th.
Okay.
Until the next time he impinges something.
Here's what I'll say about Tyler O'Neill. And coming back to Ryan Mountcastle, I don't really mind Tyler O'Neill coming back from the club. I do think I would be worried if Tyler O'Neill and Ryan Mountcastle had to hit hot exactly at the same time, and they were going to figure it out. But like, you look at Tyler O'Neill and you're like, he can't be as bad as he has been this season. So, law of averages tells you it's got to be better. So he's got to go on a hot streak soon. That's what we keep hearing. Like when he goes on a hot streak, it's on a tear. So again, just like we talked about Mountcastle, maybe he comes back and goes on a hot streak and tears it up. And, maybe we pay the dividends of it for, late June and into the All-Star break on that basis.
Can I do, I don't know if this is allowed.
Yeah.
I'm going to bend the rules of Bird's Eye View. Can we do an honorable mention on the medical wing and talk for a second about Corbin Burns?
Sure. Yeah.
That is terrible.
Yeah.
What a terrible, terrible thing for him and for baseball. I will say that there is a small but vocal group of fans who either are like, well, good, because he didn't come to Baltimore.
Or told you so.
Right. Guys, this is nothing but terrible. It's nothing but terrible.
Yeah. And these are the same folks as well that would be like, hey, we should have gone out and signed Corbin Burns. Why didn't we get Corbin Burns? So it's not good. I mean, there was peripherals that maybe hinted at this, but again, you just never know. And as we've seen from a pitching standpoint, anything can happen at any moment. You hope that he's able to recover very quickly, and that he's able to come back out and be the Corbin Burns of old. But you just don't know. I mean, you're seeing it this year with Sandy Alcantara, with the Marlins this year. Like, I would have thought for sure he would have came back and just ripped the ball, and just been the number one individual at the trade deadline. And right now, he looks like he has like little to no value on this basis going forward into the trade deadline. So, yeah, like I said, I really hope Corbin Burns is okay and he comes back as good as he ever has been.
Tangentially, because we don't have a space for this later on the show, but now I'm curious. Talk to me about your impressions of where Felix Bautista is in his return. Real shaky for a while there at first. He does seem to be slowly but surely settling in to be closer to the mountain than originally.
I'm going to go like 90%.
You think he's 90% there?
I think he's about it. I think it'll be interesting because again, he's still like a mile or two below where he historically has been. And that's not to say that's not where he lands up, is supposed to describe it. Like that is a possibility from Tommy John surgery where you don't fully recover the velocity standpoint. So I think it's 90%. He might get a little bit more as the year progresses, but I think this is about it. I have been very encouraged to see him come out in back-to-back games, which was a concern earlier in the season. So I think this is the Felix Bautista that we'll probably see for the remainder of the season. In all honesty, again, he's not as good as he was in 2023, but he's still a really good relief pitcher. I consider him to be a top 15 relief pitcher. He's just not a top 5 like he was in 2023.
I'm also delighted to see everything but the fastball. Mm-hmm. I think the split and the slider are really improving leaps and bounds. Yeah, every time I see him.
Yeah, and I still think the shape on the sinker and stuff like that is still really nice on that basis. So like, the velocity standpoint is something I keep watching every single game. But overall, I am still really impressed by Felix Bautista. He gets a solid, we'll call it A- for me, whereas in 2023 he would have been A++.
Wow. Okay, great.
All right. Well, with that, let's go and get into a hissy fight on social media and make accusations together this week on the socials.
We're going to start with a skeet from Tired at Sorority. Really loving this gay Orioles thing. 4-0 this month. Can't complain. Scotty, I was unaware. I like to think of myself as a well-informed guy. Mm-hmm. I like to think of myself as cultured. I like to think of myself as somebody who is safe, who's an ally. I will admit, I did not realize that part of the gay agenda was an Orioles World Series.
I mean, if so,
and you gotta know that there's somebody within the Texas Rangers organization right now saying, "Look, I think Orioles wins are perfectly fine. I just don't need them shoved in my face all the time."
Jake, let's just go on record here. If that's what it takes, and there needs to be more of that aspect of the world, why don't we just say that if the Orioles get to a World Series and win it, we're just going to divorce our wives and marry each other?
Fine, I'm down. In all seriousness, happy Pride, everybody! And again, this is the time to make bigots feel unwelcome on social media. It costs absolutely nothing to be kind. Do not give quarter or space for bigots during Pride.
This next skeet comes from La Piñata. Oh, sorry. I'm going to do this again. La Pianta Bonita. You can follow them at Ori Cuisine. Interesting. If you're an Orioles fan who also likes to geek out on historical patches the Birds have worn over their time in Baltimore, this is a wonderful virtual trip. So it is various jersey patch collections of the Baltimore Orioles dating back to the 1960s, all the way up to modern time. So yeah, I know you're a big uniform watcher per se. This looks like it's right up your alley, Jake.
Not only do I love uniform aesthetics, I also am a big fan of UniWatch, which is what this article links to. And I will go on record as saying that my favorite patch, and there are a lot of good ones, my favorite patch is the 1993 All-Star Game patch. I had a baseball cap with that logo on it that I literally wore until it disintegrated. But I highly recommend taking a gander through. This is one of the things that makes me so bonkers about the vanilla boringness of the O's logo.
Mhm.
This team has such a rich, storied history of great logos, of secondary, tertiary.
What one could say a colorful history.
Yes, one could say that. This is a cool read. If you're into that kind of thing, go find it. All right, next we've got a skeet from Batman. I don't know if I got the right nananas, and I apologize, Batman. But great handle. There are only 8 seasons in the Rockies' 33-year history where they won over 80 games. That is incredible. This skit is actually from like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
But I heard that stat.
I think I've heard this as well, and I thought to myself, that can't be right. Like, they've had to have like a few moments there, like the Marlins, where they've gotten to like a championship series or a World Series berth, and I started thinking about, I'm like, no, like Diamondbacks, yes. Marlins, yes. Oh.
I know that we've had it bad of recent, in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
But Rockies fans, hang in there. My goodness, I did not realize it was that dire out there.
Yeah. Last tweet comes from Eldritch Millennial. You can follow them at bmorebaker42. Suddenly, the Orioles are flirting with respectability.
It's a good skeet, but I think it really offers a certain kind of hope.
Mhm.
And that is
No, there's another.
that's solid. I think it offers a window into some of the underwhelming, or maybe just whelming references that we're going to have from here on out.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that Orioles win made me feel like things were kind of
Somewhat
okay
in the world that I live in on that basis. Yeah. Yeah, let's get into that. Like I said, last week we, in essence, said F it to the show. And we took a field trip, which color commentary, I got a few notes from various individuals, most importantly my son, and said, don't ever do that again. He's like, I like what you guys do on a weekly basis, and I don't know what that was. Point taken. So instead, we're going to sit here in front of the microphones and go around the bases. We'll be right back. Jake, starting off at first base, this has been a a story that in essence has always been the case since this individual's come up. But as Adley goes, so does this team go, it seems like. We talked about this last season. Adley's second half obviously is known by anybody that listens to this podcast. And certainly his first portion of the season has not been great. We've talked about, expected WOBA, expected batting average, and he's certainly hitting the ball hard, but the results are not dictating that on that basis too. But Adley over the past week looks like he is starting to slowly turn the corner. And he's been tinkering with things per se on that basis. Jake, why don't you kick us off here and talk a little bit about that?
It's the tale of two Adleys. Yes, over the last week, Adley Rutschman has looked like the Adley Rutschman that we would have wanted, right? It's the homers. It's the I always am impressed when I see him throwing well, because that is the one part of his game that I don't think has necessarily been as good as advertised, whereas everything else has been. Some really solid throws this past week. But I think when you talk about the tinkering, he mentioned, oh, I'm a tinkerer on the post-game show when he's trying not to give away all his secrets when, he's asked by the club, hey, or by the broadcasters, hey, what's going on? But we've heard a lot of talk about the toe tap, right? And you could see that on the homers in today's game. I think, it's all about simplification. I think he's working through. My question is, Holiday went to his dad.
Yeah.
Who is Adley talking to outside of the coaching staff?
I think that's
to get himself fixed.
I think that's the $1 million question right now, which is, it's okay. We've made this joke before. Hyde was not the reason to blame for this whole situation, nor are coaches on this basis. But someone got in his ear and said, "Hey, I saw this. You need to stop doing this." There has been a lot of, we'll call it, moving parts in the clubhouse, in the organization as of lately. So yes, it does kind of look like someone chirped in his ear and said, "I noticed this. You need to make a change." And again, I think it's interesting because, again, we kept looking at the whole situation and saying, well, exit velocity looks good, expected wobble looks good. But this is the kind of stuff that is not always in the numbers per se. But you look at the swing path and you look at the aspects of how he's approaching some of his plate discipline and everything like that. And, I wouldn't say it's Adley of old just yet, but you see promising signs on that basis. So I think this is a very intriguing question of what prompted it. Is it just Adley being Adley? Or is it someone pulling him aside and saying, hey, I know you like to tinker, but this is what you need to do. And you need to let it ride for a little bit and not do what you've been doing for the past 6 months or so.
No, I know we're joking and being a little, conspiracy theory about who's responsible for this, but I think it is pretty clear that there is, somebody that he can turn to, somebody that he can rely on, somebody with a ton of offensive prowess, somebody that is close, and that is Maverick Handley. I think clearly he's the one that has fixed Adley Rutschman. No, in all seriousness, one thing I wonder,
can we call Adley Goose then going forward in the future?
We should not. We should not do that even a little bit.
That ended very poorly for him. That's a good point.
He may have lost that love and feeling. I do wonder.
Damn Russians.
we have been told exhaustively by the coaching staff, whoever that might be at the time. We've been told exhaustively by the players, look, we're doing the right things. The results just haven't been there. We're trusting the process, et cetera, et cetera. All the cliches, right?
But then you see this.
But it is interesting.
And then you see Jackson Holiday and you're just like, yeah, I get it. And you are doing the right thing.
But now it's different.
But now it's slightly different and it's better.
Yeah. I will say it's great to see. It's hard when Adley struggles just because you want him to be so successful. He is in many ways the face of this new era of Orioles baseball. Even if he's not the star, even if he's not the best player on the club, he personifies the change.
I think it's that, and I think it's also we'll call it the common fan. And again, I don't think many folks that are listening to an Orioles podcast are a common fan. If you feel that way, I hate to break it to you, but you're a big old Oriole nerd. I think if you go to a common fan standpoint, most folks will be like Gunnar, Adley, Cowser, Westberg. And I think those are the four. I think Jackson's getting there, but I don't think Jackson is quite there. But those are the four guys.
Maverick Handley is 6.
With a name like Maverick Handley, it probably is going to be 6 very soon. But those are the guys. So I agree with you. When Adley doesn't do well, it reflects on the organization, how people feel about this organization. But yeah, let's keep watching this and see how the tinkering continues. And let's see if this is a brief sample size or if this is something that we need to look at on a greater extent.
I do think it's funny, though, that last week first base was what's wrong with Adley.
Yep.
First base this week is Adley might be kind of okay.
Yeah. But he changed something very, very interesting, very weird. Let's go to second base. As the rotation turns,
and usually that's a bad thing. Usually when we say that, but
that might have been Young and the Restless, by the way. But
can't help you.
Yeah,
Can't help you. Honestly, the starting rotation's been pretty solid the last couple turns through.
I am pissed.
Tell me more.
Do you know why I'm pissed about this?
Why are you pissed?
Let's go back 1 week. What was Fantasy Boss?
Oh, will we have a 7 inning?
We last went for 2 weeks there. I got nothing. Zippy. And then in a 1 week period, I get 2 people that go 7 innings, and one I think went like 6 2/3. Yeah. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I could have had 2 points.
Yeah.
And not the case. But listen, when I mentioned that before in the past, there were certain peripherals and certain things that I started to see. I'm like, all right, they're getting close. They're going to start putting it together soon enough. And that's why I kind of threw out that 7 inning standpoint. I'm like, okay, I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. So I'm glad that we're seeing it. Yes, part of it was against the White Sox, but overall, the starters have been pretty decent as of lately.
And it's also the type of thing, and again, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but I almost feel like they're getting the outcomes that we feel like they may have deserved a little bit earlier in the season.
That's fair. I still think they're getting screwed a little bit by outfield defense.
What outfield defense?
But I agree with you on that basis. I do think that they're, I think Shigano is an interesting standpoint because everyone is basically like, he's going to regress. He's going to regress. Like his K per 9 is at 5. There's no way that he can be this good. He's just such a unique pitcher compared to a prototypical Major League Baseball pitcher. He's certainly not as good as he's demonstrating right now. But I also don't know if he's as bad as, a FIP or an XFIP what he is showing at this given moment too. So I don't know. Like I said, I've been really encouraged. I think today's outing and, the previous week's standpoint by Eflin were nice on that basis. But I think the real story comes back down to it's the back end of the rotation. It's the standpoint of like, you're seeing Charlie Morton and you're seeing Dean Kramer go out there and be bulldogs. And I tell you, the one moment that I know has been talked about ad nauseum on various sports talk standpoint, I love the moment where Dean looks into the dugout and is just like, are you going to come pull me out? And Manzolino's just like, no. You got to do it. Like, I love that. Like, I love that aspect of like, nope, we're either going to live or die by you and you're going to have to suffer the repercussions. And I remember back in the day with Jake Arrieta. And like Arrieta had that same standpoint where like, it'd be like the 5th inning and he couldn't get through and like, he couldn't get out of his head. And like Buck would have to come out to just grab him because like, he couldn't figure it out. Yeah, he went to the Cubs. He figured it out for a few seasons on that basis. But like, that's the kind of thing that I'm expecting for someone like Dean Kramer, who has that kind of bulldog mentality, be like, don't second guess yourself. Go out there, be a pitcher. And Palmer talks about this all the time. Like, you have to have that heart. So I was glad to see that moment, both for the Orioles and also for Kramer, that he was able to get through that. And even if it didn't go well for him, I still appreciated that aspect of like that affirmation of like, we are 14 games under 500. It's time to show. Right. Go get experience is the best way to put it.
And it's a lot easier to do that when the rest of the rotation isn't a burning corpse around him.
Sure. Exactly. Yeah.
For me, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's not the top, it's the bottom that I find exciting.
Dot.
Mm-hmm. Cade Povich again.
Oh yeah.
Cade Povich turned a great performance in this week. I know this isn't, good, bad, and the ugly territory, but just really, really strong performances from the starting rotation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Povich is an interesting one to me because like he has these games and they are overall good games. He does seem to get to the 6th inning and suffer the Orioles curse of like, I can't get through the top of the order for a 3rd time. One more time, and it seems like
and my guys are doing nothing
for me, so like I lose the lead on that basis. So like that's a little something that you have to keep an eye on going forward. But again, I think that's not a bad thing, especially for a back end starter. Like in reality, like if you can do that and he can go out there and pitch 5 innings for you and it is a close game, you may just have to go to the bullpen a little bit quicker on that basis as he continues to gain experience and continues to do it. But for right now, I don't have an issue with it. It's fine.
And I think we agree that he's never going to be a top of the rotation arm, but if he can learn, I think particularly his off-speed stuff, if he can learn to use his changeup and curveball as weapons rather than meatballs, he's going to have a lot of good days.
Yeah, I mean, I look at Cade Povich and I say, yeah, this is maybe not fair, but this is the way I think of it. I look at Cade Povich and I said, he's like Dean Kramer 2.0 for me, which is like, he's a good enough pitcher to be in a starting rotation. He is not a pitcher that I would ever consider for a playoff start.
Okay.
So I would love him in a rotation. He's a fourth or fifth to me, but I will never, ever, ever, ever go to him in a playoff game.
Well, you can't have the likes of Joe Saunders in every year.
Not every year. Let's go to third base and let's talk about our potential all-star for this year for the Baltimore Orioles.
Ty Wigginton?
Ty Wigginton, indeed. No, we're talking about Ryan O'Hearn, who is making the most of his walk year. He is absolutely dominating. I think he's like fifth right now in terms of OPS right now for the American League. He's in the DH position for the All-Star voting, right up against Rafael Devers. So good luck to Ryan O'Hearn on that basis. But man, what a year for him that he's having. And you know, he is really in some instances carrying the Orioles offensively. And it's a really interesting scenario that the Orioles are in with him, which is, you know, he's a 31-year-old individual that in the past has only been able to, in essence, be a platoon bat. This year, it looks like he can hit left-handed, he can hit right-handers. And what do you do about that? Like, do you in essence say like, all right, we want this guy around for the next 3 to 4 years, and we think he's going to be a franchise piece, or do you say in the walk year, we appreciate it, we're glad that you had a great year, we're either going to trade you away for, you know, a top 100 prospect, or we're going to offer you a qualifying offer. It's awkward times for Ryan O'Hearn.
All the things you've just said are true. I also think that one of the things that's interesting about Ryan O'Hearn this year is that not only has he been carrying the team offensively for a little bit, I really feel like he was the voice of the clubhouse when there was no other voice. It really did seem to me in the last couple weeks, particularly after the firing of Hyde, where it was Ryan O'Hearn whose voice you heard, right? He was the one that stepped up, and a voice of calm, a voice of reason, a voice of simply saying like, look, this sucks, but we're supposed to have fun in this job, right? We're going to come back. We're going to do our job day after day after day. I really feel like not only has he led the club in the box score, he's been taking on more of a leadership role. I think I will miss him most, Scarecrow. Like it's pretty clear that the Orioles will not re-sign Ryan O'Hearn. I don't think that, one, you can trust the repeat of this walk year surge. This might be, you know, his career peak that we're looking at right here. And right now, Ryan O'Hearn is a $3.5 million player, and
isn't he more than that? Oh no, you're right. I think you're right. He's a $3.5 million player. Yeah.
And he's projected next year, and this is according to Sport Track, to be in the $15 million range.
That sounds right to me. I mean, that's like Tyler O'Neill level. Yeah. Like that's the way I look at it. It's like I look at him and I'm like, he is probably going to get like a Tyler O'Neill contract.
And the thing is that for another club, that makes sense. We joke about him being Steve Pearce 2.0.
Yeah.
I think that for another club, it makes perfect sense to sign him to a deal for him being the World Series MVP and eating the parts of that contract that aren't great versus the Orioles who won't get the first part.
Yeah.
Right. Ryan O'Hearn is going to make a lot of money. Ryan O'Hearn, I hope, looks more like Nelly Cruz after his Orioles contract than some others. But I really think we need to stop, smell the roses, and enjoy the last of a player who is going to make the All-Star team and was acquired for cash considerations.
Yeah.
What a story.
What a story, and what a career resurgence. Yeah, it's a tough one for me. A part of me is just like, it's $15 million a year. Like, it's a drop in the bucket in all things considering. So, like, why not just do it? But I really do think this is a career year for him. And I think he is going to be an above average baseball player for the next 3 or 4 years. but I don't think he's going to be like a Nelson Cruz leaving after 2014 kind of player. I would probably, honestly, if it were me, I'd probably trade him. And then when we get to the fall and the winter, I'd come back and be like, Ryan, do you want to come back? We're willing to offer you this. And if he really likes the clubhouse environment on the ambiance, then he makes a Mike Bordick swing deal where he says, like, I get traded and I come right back to the Orioles. But I agree with you. I think someone's going to offer him 3 or 4 years at $15 million a piece, and he's going to get that payday that he's never got before, and good for him.
Yeah. I think about Ryan O'Hearn talking about how much he loves being an Oriole and how that, resuscitated his career, how much fun he's had here. When I hear that, I envision Steve Pearce crying in the postseason clubhouse, right? It is so fun to have him as part of this club, and it sucks that this game is a business, but I really do think that the Orioles are going to part ways with him.
He's going to be a, mid-30s, like he'll be 32 next year.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, he'll be 32 later this year, so he'll be 33 at one point next year. First baseman, like someone's going to basically give him a 3 or 4 year deal, and they're going to get 1 or 2 years out of him. But the back end of that deal is just not going to be good, and maybe the Orioles could do that. I don't know. I feel like the Orioles can find a left-handed bat somewhere and teach them how to DH/first base.
Hopefully they don't come up with neck impingements every other day.
Yeah, I guess this kind of comes back to the Mountcastle question, which is like, who could play first base and who's a lefty? Well, you've got potentially the number one prospect in baseball, in my opinion, down the minors right now, who's going to need to play first base. Sorry, Ryan O'Hearn. Sorry, Ryan Mountcastle, but Samuel Basayo looks like he is going to be a superstar in the making. And you got to give him time. As we've seen before, if you don't clear spots for people, then prospects wilt on the vine. So,
yeah. Can we use a little bit of this time at third base here just to talk about the other pending free agents for the Orioles at the end of the season? That list includes pivotal component of this year's team, Gary Sanchez, Minwax, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Gregory Soto, Cedric Mullins, Tommy Sugar, Zach Eflin, Charlie Morton, and then you've got a couple of asterisks in the fact that Tyler O'Neill has an opt-out clause. Andrew Kittredge, Ramon Laureano, and Jorge Mateo have club options.
So I think there's a few storylines here, but I think the big storyline is you are losing a huge amount of your bullpen starting next year, like a huge amount of bullpen. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you're going to have to rebuild your bullpen. And as we've talked about this year, there isn't a lot of great bullpen flexibility right now with options.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Orioles really have to think about how are they going to build bullpen, and who is currently a starting pitcher that potentially needs to be ushered into the bullpen for 2026. Chase McDermott is a name that I think should immediately be thrust into a bullpen role in 2026. He does not look like a starting pitcher to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's going to be a big question of like, how does the bullpen get rebuilt? And then I think you're left with this standpoint of, Zach Eflin still, to me, looks like a top 30 starting pitcher. Is he an ace? That's debatable. But he looks like a person that I would throw out in a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
I would do everything in my power before the trade deadline to try to convince him to accept a contract with an opt-out if he wants it, just to get at least 1 more year of Zach Eflin. I think with the injury that he's had this year, I think there's going to be a little bit of a, how much value do we assign to you? I would love to have Zach Eflin back even for 1 more year. But I would give him a 3-year deal immediately for 20 to 25 million each year. Probably comes up to like a 3 for 70. And if he wants an opt out after year 1, okay, cool. Like, we understand. But we want you in this rotation for the next 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, you've just got to buy yourself time before Tyler Wells can come back from that Tommy John surgery.
I think Shigano is an interesting standpoint too, which is like, he's 35 years old. Do you trade him and let him have an opportunity to go out and get that World Series, or do you just say, we're going to use you for innings, and we're going to use you to kind of mentor folks. And if you want to stick around with us next year, great. If you don't and you want to move on, that's great as well.
I think it's probably the latter. I think it's probably the type of deal.
Like, we still don't understand quite why Shigano ended up here. Like,
he just likes the duck.
He just likes the duck. And then the one that I know we've talked about ad nauseum about, which is Cedric Mullins. I still think Cedric Mullins needs to come back to this team. Like, I know you've got Enrique Bradfield there. Enrique Bradfield, it is now June. He is still at Double-A. I think Enrique Bradfield is going to be a great player. Don't get me wrong. But I don't know how you don't get Cedric Mullins on a deal for 2 or 3 years. And I think 3 years is pushing it, honestly. I think you could probably get him for 2 years. I don't know how you don't get Cedric Mullins back on this team.
I want it in my heart. He's in his 30-year season, right? So next year will be his 31-year season.
I'm fine with that.
He's at $8.725 million right now.
Yeah.
Sportrack here has him at 8.4 for next season.
See, I think he'll probably make somewhere in the ballpark of like 15.
You think?
I think so. Like, I mean, I think he's going to be like this 2-WAR player.
Yeah, I think he's at 10-12, but I mean, we're splitting hairs at that point.
I think the big question is, like, you have to qualify and offer him, though, in my opinion. And that's going to be like a $20 million contract. So, like, if I'm Cedric Mullins and I get a 1-year deal for $21 or $22 million, I think I pull the trigger on that and say, yeah, I'll take the $21 or $22 million. Because this other standpoint is, like, once he gets that qualifying offer, he can't be qualified offered again. And then he enters into free agency for potentially the last time and potentially can get one last contract on that basis.
I think the only thing you have to be careful about is that if you give him a qualifying offer, that's a lot of money that you're locking up in 1 year. It's going to be really difficult to have the flexibility to move the wall next year if all that money is wrapped up in one player.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's an interesting standpoint. I think the bullpen construction is going to be the biggest question. I think who can they potentially re-sign from a starter standpoint with Eflin is a big deal. As we saw this past year, you have to go out and sign more starters than you need. And then for me, it's Cedric Mullins, which is like, you either have to choose between Ryan O'Hearn or Cedric Mullins in terms of someone that you potentially could extend from a position player standpoint. And for me, I'd be extending Cedric Mullins.
Wow. I don't like that at all.
But I mean, I think you can extend at least one position player. I don't think you can do two.
Sure.
But I think you can do at least one. And for me, I think Cedric is much... I know Ryan O'Hearn is having a great year this year. I still feel like Cedric has... It's difficult to replace his defense, and I know there's some people who are like, oh, he's not a great defender anymore. I still consider him to be an above-average defender. And there's just something about Cedric Mullins, like he's a catalyst for this roster.
I think the highs are higher.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So, I don't know.
All right, well, let's round and head into home. And Scotty, I want to talk about the ceiling.
Okay.
The Orioles are winners of 6 in a row.
Quite a different week than last week.
I'm going to say that again. The Orioles won 6 straight games. They have won 9 of their last 11. They are now 11 games under 500.
Okay.
And this is the first time all season that I have looked at the standings.
Okay.
The Orioles are 12 and a half games out of the AL East and 7 and a half games out of the wild card. Okay. Now, look, this is exactly the kind of absolutely
ridiculous
madness, right, that the addition of the third wild card was supposed to instill in baseball fans. It was designed to create hope where there shouldn't be. False hope, maybe, but hope nonetheless. And so I ask you, Scott Magnus, we saw the most ridiculous of lows. The Baltimore Orioles were inexplicably bad for the first month plus, 2 months of this season. They have had a good week.
Against the White Sox.
Against
the Mariners, who again...
First place team.
They're a wild card team, I think, right now. But regardless, they're a good team.
What is the season, or what is the ceiling in the 2025 season for the Baltimore Orioles now?
So, the glass ceiling for the 2025 Baltimore Orioles...
It's different.
Is that 2025... is that third wild card. Like, it's getting to 85 to 86 wins and getting a wild card spot.
Okay. I think 86, 87 is it is a pipe dream.
Yeah.
It is the memory of a pipe dream.
Yeah, that's why it's a glass ceiling. Like if it hasn't been shattered yet, yeah, but it's more than likely not going to happen. But I think that is like the pipe dreamiest of pipe dreams. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. But everything has to go right for the rest of the season.
I think if this team, I think the reasonable ceiling for this team is like 80 wins.
I agree. I think that's the reasonable season, which is you have to get to 500 baseball.
And if this team ends up 82-80 at the end of the season, it's a coup.
I agree. That is the one aspect. So there was a standpoint on this basis. I think Glenn Clark Radio actually had this, and there was a question that they asked their fan base. There's currently betting odds out there right now for the Baltimore Orioles. It's plus 500 odds. Do you think the Orioles are in essence going to have more than 80 wins this season, plus 500 odds if you, in essence, go for that aspect? So again, you put out $100, you get an additional $500 on your original $100 bet if they, in essence, do what you just said, which is they do 81 or 82 wins.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't take it, but
it's like I said, it's, the percentages standpoint tells you there's more than likely that they're not going to hit that 81 to 82 standpoint. But you look at how they're playing right now this past week, and it's a semblance of old. And again, you can look at previous teams, even last year with the Detroit Tigers. The Tigers last year in May had a 407 winning percentage, and in June, a 370 winning percentage. And they went on a tear in July, August, and September. And we've seen other teams do this and go on tears and get above 500, but also get into the playoffs on this basis. So do I think that's going to happen? No. But it has been nice for even just a short sample size in this week to see some semblance of the 2023 and 2024 Baltimore Orioles. But I'm with you. Like, I'm looking at this and saying, go get above 500 baseball. The last thing you want to do is play below 500 this season.
The other thing I think a lot about is that we got so much mileage out of winning one game.
Mm-hmm.
The last game of the 2011 season.
Mm-hmm.
The Orioles beat the Red Sox, kept them out of the playoffs.
Yep.
Robert Andino thumped his chest on the way off the field, and we sustained ourselves as a fan base on those fields.
Yep.
Now, luckily for us, the team surprised us with winning in 2012. That was great. But I just think about as bad as the team has been for the first 2 months, if the team can put themselves together to have a respectable second half of the season,
mm-hmm.
I feel like we could ride those feels into the offseason. Now,
Sure.
It behooves the Orioles to not waste that.
Of course, as they have for previous seasons.
As they have. But, I have been not so quietly wondering, hey, if you guys fumble this, what is it going to do to the fan base that has suffered so much so long? Not Rocky style,
Yep.
but pretty bad. And now I think about it, as if we have the kind of season where it's like, yeah, you know what? We were actually pretty good in that second half. I think that will be enough for the fans to have an open mind, to be impressed, put down their torches and pitchforks in the offseason. But the proof's in the pudding.
All right, so the percentage standpoint, I'm asking the glass ceiling question. What is your percent chance that the Orioles still potentially get to the playoffs?
2.5%.
Okay. I'm at 5. Like, I think it's possible. I think it's highly unlikely, but I think it's possible.
So you're saying there's a chance.
There's a chance. But again, like, you played really bad in May. Like, if they would have won an additional 2 or 3 games there in May, I would probably feel completely different about this. But like those 2 or 3 games, and honestly, like, I think I go back to the National Series, losing that to the Nationals and going 1-5 against Nationals in a 6-game series. I feel like that's going to be the death knell at the end of the year.
I also think it's funny because there was a point during the first 2 months of the season where we were like, look, all we need is like a 5 to 8 game run where they're really good, and we are right back in this. And here we are in a 6-game winning streak, and I'm like, nah, we're still toast.
We're still toast. Yeah, it's the standpoint of like, you need a 10-game winning streak, and then you need another 10-game winning streak at some point in the season.
They needed this 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
They needed this 3 weeks
That's exactly right. So, all right. Well, with that, I'm glad we were so positive. We're going to get more comments on that aspect of our positivity coming out of home plate. Jake, we're on the West Coast, and late night baseball is going on. I think it's time we dim the lights, light some candles, and come back for our favorite segment of the entire year.
That's right. This is our favorite segment of the year. And if you are a new listener and have no idea what's happening here, dear God, I'm so sorry. You have wandered into Dongs After Dark.
Oh, yeah.
And look, we all know a Dong After Dark when we see it. It's a home run. It's a home run that is so big, so vast, so sweeping in its scale. And it comes late at night when the Orioles are on that West Coast and it's just you and the baseball team with a little bit of quality time. That's right. We love the Dongs After Dark. And at some point in the illustrious history of this show, we wondered to ourselves, what would an adult film called Dongs After Dark sound like? And so each year we prepare some synopses of these adult films. We do not know each other's films or the synopses. We surprise each other with these Dongs After Dark.
These are the things that, if you had the TV guide back in the day and you were flipping through it, you would come across, Cinemax or another aspect, and there would be a short synopsis of what blurry vision you were going to see on your cable television.
Boy, you have dated us with both TV Guide and Cinemax.
Hi, welcome to Bird's Eye View.
Let's go ahead and get this started. Can I regale you with the first film that I've prepared? The first Dongs After Dark?
Go for it.
All right, let me just take a look at this. Slithering in, his tentacles wherever he can. This utility player makes the most of your favorite dudes getting hurt. Whether it's his powerful stroke or the way he sucks up balls no matter where he plays, Emmanuel Rivera will make you say, El Pulpo, as he stars in the Asin production of Dongs After Dark, 8 Arms to Hold You.
All right, I'm feeling this now. I think I'm back into the rhythm. So let's go into the next segment for Dongs After Dark. This experienced veteran has all the command and knows exactly where to place his balls. He may not be fast, but he certainly is accurate. Pour some sugar on it, baby, because here comes Tommy Sugar to the mound. Tomoyuki Shigano stars in Tommy Sugar, One Last Ride.
Vanilla is the best flavor. Lost among the exotic talents of his fellow performers, this broadcaster works hard not to overexcite. His partners might bring the drive. They might bring the passion. But they will never reach that slow and steady pace in a terrible season of 2025 that just might hit the sweet spot. Ben Wagner takes the edge off in Dongs After Dark, Sweet Nothings.
This young prospect is just trying to find his way in the major leagues. He's surrounded by veterans, but falls into favor with a group of fellow condiments. Colby Mayo stars in put on your condiments in Dongs After Dark.
Sometimes relationships can get a little too comfortable. Sometimes you need to try something new to light that fire, to spice things up, to chalk up a few wins. When an ex is shown the door, this team player has to switch to become a top and to get more firm with his boys. No longer pumping it in from third base, he's sharing his fantasies night after night in post-game interviews. Tony Mansolino stars in Dongs After Dark, The Stranger.
And of course, we couldn't end Dongs After Dark without the last submission on this basis. This crafty veteran is seeking that final money shot. While he hits the balls and barrels them up, he's always looking for that next last big shot. Ryan O'Hearn stars in Suck My Effing Balls in Dongs After Dark.
I knew it was coming and I couldn't stop it.
Starring in Dongs After Dark. That's what they all say.
Listen, Birdland, we would apologize, but we have no class or taste. So listen, tell us what your brief synopsis would be on Dongs After Dark. Hit us up on Blue Sky. Let us know what we've missed on these West Coast games. And Scotty, can I complain for a moment?
Sure.
You know I love the West Coast ball games.
Yeah.
Love staying up late. Love clearing the time. What the crap is a 3:40 game
It's unbelievable.
on the West Coast?
It's absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane.
Also, the Orioles are about to go play in a minor league park in Sacramento.
Yes.
It'll be great. It'll be a minor league team going into a minor league park. It made me think, though, about the beginning of this season, in the before times,
But
when we didn't realize that all the things were going to be awful. And I think it was the first episode of this baseball season where I pulled up the
Jake and
schedule.
Scott reminisce about the good old times and Dongs After Dark.
But I pulled up the schedule and I was like, oh, I'm looking forward to this or I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to go back and revisit that. And I think it'd be great to come back and look at it and say, oh, I was really looking forward to the first time that the Royals would come back to town and we would have the opportunity to avenge ourselves from being kicked out of the playoffs.
Idiot. Stupid.
Fool.
Yeah.
The thing that makes me think about that is I thought to myself, I said in that segment, I think it's going to be so fun to go to that minor league park. Next week, maybe we'll revisit that. I think it's worth looking to see just how off we were.
Yeah, a fond remembrance are back. Let's go figure out who won last week in Fantasy Balls. We'll be right back.
Now you're just toying with my emotions.
Well, it was a weird week in Fantasy Balls. We had two separate players that we could pick from. The category last week was XFIP. We both picked a starter and a reliever, and there was a possibility for me to get back into it with 2 additional points. Jake, I selected Zach Eflin for my starter, who pitched a 3.22 XFIP in his game 1, 2.17 XFIP in his game 2. You chose Turner Rogers, who never returned to the majors after having a great start.
Never to be seen again.
He'll be back.
Is that a threat? It feels like a threat.
Welcome to Bird's Eye View. So I did click there on that basis. But we also picked relievers. You picked Andrew Kittredge, who had a 3.07 XFIP. And Felix Bautista, who I picked, had a 4.87 XFIP. Felix Bautista was not very accurate this week. He did have some success with saves. But as it relates to XFIP, a lot of walks, a lot of hits. It was not comfortable, is the most way to describe it. So we
hold on to your butts.
Exactly. So we go 1-1. The score now goes to 5-2 on this basis. So not terrible whatsoever. So Jake, we obviously have to go with the obvious selection.
Absolutely.
It's got to be Dongs, right?
It's got to be Dongs.
So we are going to Oakland. We're playing 2 games in the evening. And then we're
Wait,
playing
there's another day game?
another day game on Sunday.
What?
Another day game on
Don't
Sunday.
they get...
Don't they understand how this is supposed to work?
They're ruining our bit.
And then we come home and play the Tigers. So Jake, you get to pick 2 individuals, and then we're going to do a cumulative aspect for both those individuals to see who wins.
Okay, so I shouldn't pick Ryan Mountcastle and Cedric Mullins.
You can.
I certainly can. Okay, so I get 2
You could
players.
be really bold here and go Jordan Westberg and Laureano.
That would be bold.
Yeah.
It would be something.
Mhm.
I'm going to pick Colton Cowser.
Mhm.
And I'm also...
Hasn't he looked great so far coming back?
Yeah.
Like you watch him and how he is like approaching the plate discipline. He looks dialed in. The lineup feels different with him in it.
I would argue the clubhouse is probably different with him
Agreed.
in it too.
Yeah.
I really do. It's funny because he's loud, he's boisterous, but
Correct.
I think,
He's loud and boisterous in a good way.
yeah, I think that's needed. I'm trying to avoid chalk here, Scotty.
Mhm.
I don't want to just load up on the I don't want to load up on the chalk, and I also don't want to take Cooper Hummel. Am I allowed to take Jackson Holiday? Can I do that?
I think that's perfectly fine.
Okay. I'm going to say all lefty here. I'm going lefty, lefty, lefty. I'm going to take Jackson Holiday, and I'm going to take Colton Cowser.
Okay. I am going to obviously pay heed to the individual I selected for Dongs After Dark. I'm going to go with Ryan O'Hearn because I want you to suck my effing balls.
I get that a lot. It's okay.
And I'm going to go non-chalk for my next pick. I'm going to go with Ramon Urias.
I almost did the same. I think that is a great pick. I think that is a great pick because when he's hot,
Right.
carries the team.
And he has not been hot
No.
as of recently.
No.
And again, Westberg will be coming back potentially on the spaces too. So we'll see what county at bats he gets. But I don't know. Like it always seems like when Urias is about to be threatened with playing time reduction, he always is like, you know what? Suck my effing balls and starts hitting home runs.
And the way this season is going, it may only take one to click.
Right. Exactly. So that's who I'm going to go with. It doesn't really make sense. But when does fantasy balls ever make sense?
I took a picture
Yeah.
for you. I went to a concert last weekend on Saturday, and I was trying desperately not to creep somebody out, but there was a person in the crowd who was wearing an Orioles City Connect jersey. It was a custom jersey, so that it had a name on the back, and this is the photo I took.
Oh, I like that. It says the boss on the back and then 57.
My first thought was, of course, fantasy
Fantasy
balls.
balls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure that this is a diehard Bird's Eye View listener, loves the Fantasy Boss segment. He is the one, and got his Orioles jersey to reflect that.
I'm sure it can't be, because he's a Bruce Springsteen fan, because again, who would listen to Bruce Springsteen,
In 2025.
in 2025? Exactly. All right. Well, let's go to our next segment, which is we'll figure out who is good, who is bad, and who is ugly this past week in Baltimore.
That's right. It is time again for the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm going to go ahead and get started this week, Scotty. My good is going to come down to it's about time. And I say that because a lot of the leaders offensively this week are either guys that are hurt now or guys that got very few plate appearances. But one of the regulars, Heston Kjerstad, ended this week with 150 weighted runs created plus in 16 plate appearances. He did strike out at an 18.8% clip, but with a 333 BABIP, which means it was pretty true.
Yeah.
Pretty true. Did great things with the time that he had. Drove in 3 runs. Again, it's about time.
I will also come back to Heston Kjerstad, pivotal triple in order to put them ahead. So, we've been talking about it this entire year in terms of win probability added, and Heston Kjerstad has been absolutely abysmal in terms of ground into double plays. It was great to see him, in essence, break free for one instance and have a big moment. So good for Heston Kjerstad for having a solidish offensive performance this week. The defense still looks absolutely abysmal. So again, if you're looking for a DH spot, hey, there's Heston Kjerstad. My good for the week is going to be a little odd because it's not on the stat sheet, but it's something that if you're watching the games, I think is interesting. My good for the week is actually going to go to Buck Britton. I've actually been super impressed by Buck Britton at third base. I think he's made some really nice calls in terms of when to send folks, in terms of, some hustle plays. We talked about this when Hyde was still managing and stuff like that. The team seemed very lethargic. They weren't pushing on that basis. The team over this past week has kind of lost that lethargic standpoint, has been pushing it. Even Mountcastle getting hurt on this basis, like the double steal standpoint is a cool standpoint as well. But again, like Mayo getting from first to home in many instances, like Buck Britton has done a really good job at sends. So he's going to get my good. It's an underrated aspect. And when you fail, you normally get noticed. But I think Buck Britton's been doing a nice job as of lately.
What I'm hearing you say is the thing that turned this team around was getting Tony Mansolino off third.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I'm saying.
All right, Scott, this week my good is going to go to...
What?
That's right. We won 6 games in a row. This might be the only shot I got. We're going good for the first time.
All right.
My good this week goes to Brian Baker, who finished off today with a save, 3 appearances, 3 innings, no runs. Brian Baker is quietly becoming a dependable arm in the bullpen, a dependable arm in high leveraged situations. And Brian Baker is giving you a window, a view into the player you kind of hoped he might be able to become when he was first acquired. I feel like the rub on Brian Baker has been like, yeah, I wish he would be good. He's just not. He's Brian Baker. The fire is there. And I feel like his pitching is finally matching the fire. And look, maybe this is the Orioles thing where he's the best pitcher for 2 weeks and then flames out. He's the next Chaz Rowe. Okay, maybe. But for this week, he was good.
Yeah. My bad for the week is going to go to an individual that I think has been struggling. But there was a quote from Mansolino at the end of the game today saying, like, I think he's right about to turn the corner. And I do truly believe that. Gunnar Henderson has had a really rough week this week. He's had no walks, 90% K rate, very little power except for today with his home run. But, coming in through today, 286 average, and then good for a 75 weighted runs created plus. Now, obviously, the home run today significantly helps that aspect.
Sure.
But I feel like just like we talked about this past week, when Adley starts getting it together, this team plays differently. If Adley and Gunnar start hitting the ball at the very top of the order, this team could get really good really quickly, is the best way to put it. So, I think Gunnar's close. Like, I look at how he's putting the ball into play. He's putting the ball at 100 miles per hour pretty often. They're going to people pretty often. So he gets my bad, but I agree. Like, he is so close to being really good. We'll just see. We'll see what happens.
All right, my good is going to go to... All right, I'm going to give you a good, and then I'm going to give you an honorable mention.
Sure.
All right. My good is going to go to Dylan Carlson. Outfield has been a real problem.
Mm-hmm.
A real, honest to God problem. In 16 plate appearances, he had 143 weighted runs created plus, but also playing consistent, solid outfield, holding down the Laureano spot until he gets back. They had a good, used the best, made the most of his time, had a good week. Good on you.
Yeah. My ugly for the week is going to go to, unfortunately, Baltimore Orioles organization. Not the Orioles per se, but the Orioles organization. Derek Arnold clued me into this aspect. He was posting about it. And I noticed this. The Orioles put in that, we'll call it kid zone in left field where kids can, in essence, go down. You have to be under 14 years old. You can go in there. And in essence, that was open to anybody. That was pulled back this week, or I guess before the homestand, and it was indicated that no longer can anybody in the stadium, in essence, go down in that aspect. You have to be sitting now in that lower section right next to the bird bath. So not in the bird bath, but those 4 sections right by the foul pole. So if I'm a family of kids, number one, I'm not necessarily sure that I'm sitting down in those sections. I might be sitting up. I might be sitting over in the bleachers. I might be sitting up in, the odd sections as it were. So I don't love this whatsoever. Like, it's not like people are going to get standing room tickets or upper decks and just be like, well, I'm going to go upper deck tickets and then stand down there for 9 innings. Like, that's not happening. I do think the Orioles, I understand what the Orioles are doing here, where they're trying to minimize the coming up and down to that section. But this doesn't seem like it's the purpose to be like, it's not another bird bath. Like, this is just an opportunity for kids to get into and be closer to the game to experience it. So this is one that I think the Orioles need to rethink and ask the question, does this really fit the spirit of what we were trying to accomplish? And is there a better way for us to do this going forward in the future?
It's like saying you can only stand on the flag court if you have bleacher seats.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So I just think it's something like, I understand why they're doing it. I was actually surprised when the season first started. I was like, do I need to be sitting over there? But the more and more I thought about it, I'm like, no, it doesn't make sense. Like, it actually makes sense where like anybody that has, the ability to just walk down into that section, as long as you're age, to experience the game like this basis. So I do hope the Orioles reconsider this and just say, you know what, this is a stupid policy. We're just going to open it up. And as long as, kids are under a certain age, we're going to let them come down there. Maybe we'll put a limit on it saying like, you can only be down there for 2 innings or so. And then we're going to be like, hey, we need to turn it over. But this is ugly to me. And I think the Orioles need to kind of reflect on that and potentially go back to their old policy on that basis.
Yeah. Yeah. My honorable mention is just going to go back to Charlie Morton. Every last drop of useful baseball player we get out of him after the way it started is a delight. And, again, while he was struggling, you felt bad for him. You wanted things to go better than they were, not just because we needed it for the team. So Charlie Morton, honorable mention, not quite on the good pedestal, but thanks for your service this week.
All right. With that, why don't we go ahead and end the show? Let's go ahead and blow the save.
Scotty, I was watching the game today while I was working and doing 1,000 other things in the house. And for one of the first times in a long time, I watched listened to a great deal of the post-game show. Usually, after the horror show that is an Orioles game in 2025, they say, stick around for the post-game show. And I say, no. But I did this time, and I was delighted. I was delighted because they've got this segment. It's like, who am I? And there's a silhouette of a player.
It's like Pokemon.
Yeah.
Who's that Pokemon?
Right. They ask the question, they go away to commercial, they come back, and then they tell you who it is. Today, it was Taylor Teagarden.
T for 2.
T for 2. And I was just thinking to myself, how delightful it was during the Buckle Up Birds era. And just what a great time to be an O's fan that was. And you had the regular cast, right? You had the Cap 10, and you had Manny, you had Jay, Pause Jay. We had Steve Pierce, we had Nick, we had Nelson Cruz. I mean, just all the regulars, right? It just great. But one of the things that was truly delightful, I think, about that was also the guest, the bit players. And Taylor Teagarden was one of them, and was mostly unremarkable, but had that one moment of Orioles magic. And of course, I think it was a 3-run homer at the end of the game against the White Sox. But it also then reminded me of the Chris Dickerson home run. And I just started thinking about like all of the bit part players. You had the Lou Fords of the world. You had the Danny Valencias, the Jimmy Paredes.
I was about to say, if we're not going to mention Nate McLaus.
Yeah, well, he was a little bit more of a regular.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Like, you're looking at the aspect of an individual that pops in the lineup like once or twice a week, basically.
Yeah, or guys that were only here for a couple of months, or
like
something like that.
like an Alejandro Diaza.
Yeah. I was pleasantly surprised. It was such a fond memory for me to go, oh yeah, that guy. That was fun.
Yeah.
The Birds, the Buckle Up Birds years, that was fun. It was really fun. And, I hope that we're in an era of baseball outside of this 2-month blip. I hope that we are in an era of Orioles baseball that we'll be able to look back on and say,
hey, Maverick Hamley.
Yeah. And in the midst of it say, man, that was fun. What a great time it was to be an Orioles fan. And that is our show. Remember, you can find this and our entire catalog of indispensable episodes at birdseyeviewbaltimore.com.
Bird's Eye View is well for streaming wherever you get your podcast, because really, who downloads podcasts anymore? Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, and many others. Please remember to rate and review the show. We appreciate the feedback and encourages other people to listen for the first time.
Maybe don't comment on the Dogs After Dark episode. Maybe wait till next week.
Listen, if you want to write a scathing letter, please send to the Catholic Charities Baltimore. We appreciate all the commentary.
Come and get social with us. You can email us at contact@birdseyeviewbaltimore.com. You can find us all over social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Snapchat, and while it is still legal to do so, we are on the ticks and we are on the tops.
I have a feeling that the ticks and talks are going to come back strong after today. Super strong.
We are also settling in very nicely over at Orioles Blue Sky, where we ski at Bird's Eye View, BAL. And with that, Baltimore and beyond, I'll bid you all a fond adieu, adieu.
Good night, Baltimore. Keep it XXX out there. And let's go O's. What are we doing here?
I don't know.
You still here? It's over. Go home. Go.